Bang! Kyrie Irving dropped 60 on the Orlando Magic in a historic NBA and Brooklyn Net performance. We dive in on it all right after the theme music.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, yes, it is the Brooklyn Nets here on the Locked On Nets podcast, where I'm your host, Adam Arbrecht. Over there is Doug Norrie, and we are bringing you a show brought to you by Prize Picks, which, of course, you can check out and use promo code NBA or go over to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free on all those great platforms. Doug, I can't get the words out of my mouth. Kyrie Irving, 60-point performance. You give me some things that really made you feel great tonight while I collect myself.
Oh man, look, no one would blame you for us having to start this over 5 times. It's all right, man. It's history. You can't rush history. This is, look, I don't know, what else you say about this point? Kyrie Irving, it's a gift to be able to watch him when he's actually able to play. And this was just another game as a reminder. His best one yet, which is really saying something because we said that about the game, 3 games ago or whatever about when he put up 50, and it was just fully in his bag, doing every single thing you'd ever want a basketball player to be able to do. He can do it all. He's a generational talent. This is undeniable at this point. He's one of the, if not, the way he's playing now is one of the greatest point guards to ever play. I'm not saying that without hyperbole here. These kinds of performances where it looks absolutely effortless. It looks like he could have gone for 80 if they had just kept him in the game. This was just everything you want. I'm openly cheering during the game, and because that's just what you want to see. This is what you turn basketball on to see, are these kind of things, to say, hey, I was in this place when I remember this guy dropping 60 essentially without breaking a sweat, and that was just the kind of game he had.
It was nuts to see, you just said, without breaking a sweat. And we've seen this now in recent games from Kyrie Irving, but easy to forget it because he's played in 93 total games for the Brooklyn Nets. But when he goes off like this, and in this instance against the Magic, which is a game you expect to win coming in, but it was tip-off, ball to Kyrie, triples from the outside, penetrating into the mid-range, getting to the free throw line. And to your point, man, we've talked about this so much around other players in the league. We know Kevin Durant is like this. Maybe it is because we haven't seen him on an every night basis this year, but I don't know how you look at a performance like this. And you cannot look past the fact that he's a point guard doing this in a game like this and not say he's one of the best all time. And he's one of the best in the game right now in this moment, which I think people have somehow lost sight of over the course of the last few years somehow.
Yeah, it's because the conversation around him has been about a lot of other things that are non-basketball related. Some of his own doing, some of his not his own doing, some sort of weird combination of the two. And that has been the story of Kyrie Irving. What is unassailable is that when he's actually on the court, this is what you get, right? The on the court stuff for him has been, there's been no controversy, right? Around
no bones about it. It's not a question of it. Do you think he could do it? Do you think
it's really this? Honestly, this is the state of his whole career. This is what when he steps on the basketball court, you pretty much know what you're getting. It's unfortunately off the court, you're sometimes not exactly sure. But that unfortunately, for whatever reason, has rewritten some of the narrative so that when you get this kind of performance, I had people texting me this actually doesn't happen to me a ton. I had multiple people texting me tonight, what's up, Kyrie going off. I had one guy, text me tonight. It's like, hey, should I turn the game on? These are non-Nets fans, people.
Right.
But what I'm saying it to bring up the point, this is entering the general NBA consciousness now too.
Yeah.
This is not just a Brooklyn Nets thing. This is oh my God, this guy 2-3 games ago dropped 50 on Charlotte. Then in the biggest game of the year against for the regular season against the Sixers, they just completely decimate the Sixers on the back of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving basically saying, hey, we're going to go out and just embarrass these guys because that's just going to be what we're going to do. And you guys just aren't ready. And he only needed 22 points in a game. They beat that team by 30. And then he comes out to a game later against Orlando, who, are they a lottery team? Sure. Who cares? 60 points is 60 points. I don't care who you're playing against. goes 20 for 31 from the field, 8 for 12 from 3, looked like he'd never missed a shot in his entire life. And like, this is the kind of Kyrie you can get when he's totally dialed in, man. And if it sounds like we're pumped, it's just because you just don't get to see that often. Like, this does not happen that often. You can watch basketball your whole life. You are not going to get many games like this. So when you actually get them, you have to savor them.
Yeah, and that's the sense that you could get early in this one. And I always look at for especially for Kyrie Irving, because when he knocks down the perimeter looks the way that he was doing it in this game, where it was essentially like, I'm just going to walk up and dagger this. It doesn't really matter. I'm choosing to hit a triple in this one. That to me is the first sign that you're about to see him have one heck of a game. I'm not talking, doesn't mean it tells me it's going to be historic, but I'm like, okay, he's going to be able to really cook here. And then you start going. Then he gets into his bag. And to be fair, man, it's a 60-point performance. And a lot of the work was done with ease because he's that good, not because it was an effortless zero defense from Orlando. There were at least sequences when you went, and oh, by the way, when you do the thing where an announcer will tell you, and tonight it was Michael Grady and Sarah Kustok, when they go, Markelle Fultz did everything right. 2 points for Kyrie. Defender locks him down on the perimeter. Triple for Kyrie. There are certain, to your point, moments when you are watching NBA, any sport, when you just know, when you know that this may not be something I see for another 6 months, another 2 years, another 5 years. And I know that there are other big performances, 50-point performances, 50 and 60-point games look different based on context. This was one that we'll get to in a little bit here, has historic accomplishments written all over for Kyrie.
The Magic fans were cheering for him to come back out and play.
I like that one.
I'm not even saying that like with a smile on my face. It's just true. When that happens, when you have eschewed the ideas around fandom to see something that like you got lucky enough to be a Magic fan and to show up and have tickets on the night, like that's what you're cheering for. Like, that's what sports is about. Like, at that point, yeah, they know they're going to lose. Who cares? It's probably the story of the Magic season. Mm-hmm. I would contend that most teams, fans would have probably done this if the game's out of hand and like you're watching this kind of happen. Because at that point, as a fan, you've told yourself the story like, oh my God, I got to be in the stadium for this. Like, and yes. when he gets taken out with 8 minutes and 32 seconds left to go in the fourth, like the place was deflated. Yeah. Again, this is the opposing team. They're deflated because now they feel like they've been robbed of the opportunity to see something like really historic. We're already in the 60-point. We're already in the 60-point zone, which is the list on that is really, really short to begin with, relatively speaking. Because with 8 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in the game, you're thinking, I mean, could we get 70 here? Could we get 75? It's looking like he probably could have if they had just given him every shot. So when you get the opposing fans that are giving Nash the business and cheering for Kyrie to get his butt back in the game, like that just kind of, to me, told the whole story.
Applauded him on an and one when he was, I think, on 55 points.
They're like, they went
here
nuts.
We go. Keep going.
Nuts.
Like, you can get there, buddy. Like, if that's
in their magic year, like they pan the stands.
And as well, you should too. Like, right. Like, you should be able to take the step back and go, I'm witnessing something incredibly unique and historic here. I want it to be the best possible memory that I can make out of this thing. Right. You need to remove yourself. And for the Magic, it's probably a little bit different given where they are. But even if this was at the highest level, I think you need to be able to step back and appreciate a game like this, no matter when it's happening, no matter where your team is, as far as the standings go. So no, man, it was absolutely epic. And by the way, just a little cherry on top here. Also a game the Nets needed to win. So Kyrie dropping 40 points in the first half alone. And then, but let's not to deflate this here before we move on.
Well, real quick, no, don't deflate anything. Don't deflate anything. Well, let me make one more point, and then I'm gonna do a quick spot here, and then you can get to your little deflation nation, whatever you're gonna end up doing. One thing about Kyrie too, and this is interesting to me from the fan perspective, is that obviously Kyrie is a lightning rod of controversy. He's a pretty polarizing dude, all things considered. The polarization around him, though, exists really, again, only in off-court stuff, because anybody who likes basketball likes watching Kyrie play. It actually does not matter. It's funny about what he does to people, because it probably has like this cognitive dissonance around people, because you might dislike, and there's plenty of people that don't like Kyrie. Believe me, they've been in my mentions for many a week now. Because I've, for all the stuff that's going on, there's many people that don't like him, but I'm for a fact, and you'll hear this from national media people too. They love watching him play, because you'd be insane to not love watching him play, because what he does in the court, there's no trash talk. There's just go out there and just do it. And like when he gets out there, He does it better than just about anyone else who's ever done it. So, okay, we can get into whatever you wanted to bum us out with here in a second. I'm just kidding. No, we got plenty of context around like some of the records and all this other stuff for sure about where this game sort of sits historically. First, going to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks had a prop tonight. Because they have the best props in the business. Bar none, it's the easiest place to go. You can't go to these other big operators because it's just too difficult to sift through. It's impossible. Prize Picks, they just clearly line it up for you. You're just picking against the number. That's it. Over unders. Kyrie 25.5 points on Prize Picks. That was over by the midway through the second quarter. So if you went over on the 25.5 on Prize Picks by Kyrie, easy game on that one. You were almost all the way home because Prize Picks, all you have to do, you pick 2 to 5 players, you bet the over-unders and their projections, you can win up to 10x. That's 10 times on any entry. You can put them in just a minute. Super easy. You just see it right there in front of you. Super safe. They offer very easy and fast withdrawals, which these days is really saying something. Like I said, over-under points, rebounds, steals, assists, bench players, starters, stars, maybe some of those role guys too. It's all there on Prize Picks for a limited time. Prize Picks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. You're going to get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. That was over for Kyrie Irving in the first couple seconds of the game. You have to use the code NBA. That's right. Exclusive offer for those Locked On fans, Locked On Nets fans out there. Sign up today and use the code NBA for $50 for free if a player scores your first Prize Picks entry, scores a single point. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy.
Okay, I'm not here to bum anybody out. It was really just a question. Yeah, it was a question that I know. I just want to ask the question though. You said 8:30 mark. He comes out of the game. Do you think they should have just kept him in?
Yes.
Like I no, right, because I know obviously like Nash. It's not like Nash is like, well, sit it down, Kyrie. Like he clears it with Kyrie. If Kyrie wants to keep on hustling, he keeps hustling. Now, to your point about, I think Kyrie is so good and so impressive. I've said it before on the podcast. Like, he's an artist. Let the man paint, right? That's what you're watching in terms of the style of his play and how beautiful it can be to watch his game. And at that point, you do want him to keep going. But Kyrie isn't necessarily, I don't think, a personality or a individual who particularly cares that he's setting NBA records in this game. He wants to be dominating. He wants to be playing at elite level. But I don't know if he was concerned that, hey, I could catch Kobe Bryant's 80 if I really go for it here over the course of the second half. Instead, he comes out 8.5 minutes, easily could have been a 70-point performance. We all got at least robbed slightly here as we were riding the crest of that wave, and then we're like, oh, they just pulled it out from me, and I'm face down on my boogie board, on the shoreline there.
I think there's a certain tacit agreement among NBA guys, and I don't think I'm saying yes selfishly because I wanted him to stay in and go for 100 or whatever. Right. No one seemed to be upset with the decision. Like I said, I think there's an agreement among NBA folks that says the game is out of hand. I'm not here to run it up. I'm not here to and now with the game over and in hand, what any reasonable team would take out its starters and run bench blowout minutes, which is basically what happens here. 8 minutes, fourth quarter, you get buzzed off your minutes. That's just what happens in the NBA when the game is a rout. I think the understanding is that within the normal context of a game, this is when the guys would come out. And so everyone understands that to be the case. I don't think there's joy for a guy like Kyrie because the Magic are going to take their starters out. And I don't know if there's joy around Kyrie Irving continuing to run around on the court for another 8 minutes against, right. Mo Wagner and, whatever else is whoever else is playing there at the end of the game, the end of the bench guys for the Magic. I think it's sort of just a handshake agreement, unwritten rules, which I usually kind of hate the unwritten rule thing because it's usually dumb. But I do believe that in this case, it makes sense. And you can just judge it by the reaction, right? Like everyone was just smiling. Yeah. They knew it was mission accomplished. And really the only piece that wanted me to have him stay out there was the selfish part that I was like, I wouldn't mind him having 80 in this game because 60 feels good. 65 would feel better. 70 feels better than that. And we can keep going up the list about how much better I'll feel with each additional point.
So let's get into then the historic context for this. First, from a Brooklyn Nets perspective and a New Jersey Nets perspective, with that performance, Kyrie Irving officially becomes the all-time Brooklyn, New Jersey net franchise leader for a single game point performance, surpassing Darren Williams, who set that mark on the now debunked Charlotte Bobcats back in 2012 with his 57-point performance. From just quickly on that part of it alone, because by the way, Kevin Durant also will be now fourth all time on the list behind one other 2020 Kyrie performance. Kevin Durant just did that on the 13th, in case you're wondering. That would be the 53-point performance that he had against the Knicks. So records are tumbling here. But I think that if you are a Brooklyn Nets fan, a New Jersey Nets fan who's followed this franchise, this also feels like a nice little moment from that perspective, because there's not a soft little warm spot in the hearts of Nets fans when it comes to Darren Williams. Him having that accolade inside of franchise history is one that a lot of people are going to be happy to see that go by the wayside. Not to trend negative, but like, it's just good to have it be a guy that on the basketball court, everyone universally loves.
Yeah, and it's funny too. It's another testament to Kyrie about the love, because I think that Nets fans to a person still love Kyrie Irving. If I'm just taking the temperature of the, even in spite of what's going on with him this season, right? Like, I think if you
And everything last year too, right?
just it doesn't take anything. Like, you can read what's written about him at this point. That solves some of it. You can go into spaces, you read Twitter, you can, like, we spend a lot of time interacting with fans of the team, and because we're fans ourselves, right? And so you can just get a general, tenor of what people feel about Kyrie, and it's 100% like all love, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just, it's very rare that you hear some frustration sometimes. Most of the frustrations come from people outside of net circles. Like, it's not really
Just
among
don't ask
Nets
James
fans.
Harden, I guess, is probably
It's actually not too dissimilar to like how the NBA players feel about him. NBA players love Kyrie, like,
Yep.
to a person, they love Kyrie. That's unequivocal. Like, that's just how they feel about him. And so anytime you can get that guy to like sort of do something like this, I'm totally with you. Nets fans have to love that piece of it, because it's very clear that, at least, who knows how it ends, but as of right now, like, we know how it ended with Darren Williams. And so,
yeah,
like, the fact that, like, right now everyone would vote to have, either Kyrie or KD have that record, because that's a nicer face to see when it comes up. I think most Nets fans would agree with that.
Guys like myself and Kyrie are just easy to love. That's what we've always said.
I mean, 1-to-1 comp between you guys, like, I would say.
They go
from New Jersey,
etc.
I'll think of the other,
Yeah.
yada, 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 and the other things.
Exactly. Now, from an NBA perspective, because there have been big performances, Karl Anthony Towns just dropped a 60-point performance a couple days ago as well. But from a 60-point or better performance in NBA history, the reason why there's another, I think, to me, a historic level is he's going to be Kyrie Irving fourth all time behind only James Harden. 2019 performance with Houston. Nothing we have to worry about, Brooklyn Nets fans. LeBron James back with Miami in 2014, and Carmelo Anthony in 2014 with the Knicks. Both those games, LeBron and Carmelo against the Bobcats. Those guys just wanted to be in the record somehow. In terms of efficiency, because he went 20 of 31 from the field, right? So he narrowly is behind them in that category. You can get into the three-point shooting, where he is the third all-time on a 60-point performance to be able to do that as well, let alone the minute shares piece we were talking about before we got on. He did it in 38 minutes. Only James Harden's performance against the Atlanta Hawks back in 2019, where he did that in 31 minutes, although he also happened to get to the free throw line 23 times in that game. Like, this is not only historic because it's a 60-point game. Not a lot of people in the NBA history have done that. It's also all-time efficient, historic 60-point game from Kyrie Irving, something that he just did a few games ago, not with 53 points, but 60 points, but just in terms of the guy is ultra efficient in the process of setting records.
Yeah, he set the record the other day for the most efficient game. He set the record the other day for the most efficient game in NBA history in true shooting. It was like over 100, which is essentially breaks the stat, because I'm pretty sure the stat is on 100. It's on 100% scale. And so, like, when you go over 100, you're like, well, that's not supposed to happen, right? Like, how does because, like, if you read the headlines from that, it was like he broke the analytics, he broke the stat, right? It was it's just not supposed to happen in the way the stat was constructed. And so he had already just done that. And then they haven't turned it to, it was 101.3 true shooting percentage that he had the other night. They haven't done it for this game yet, or I haven't seen it or calculated it. But it's going to probably be close to that. But like what we're saying, the bottom line is, in terms of efficiency, like, you literally can't be more efficient than this. Like, when you are the most, like, sometimes you're like, you can't be more. No, I'm being serious. Like, it's this kind of efficiency is unparalleled in basketball history, like, all the games. And
Yeah.
like to hit that true shooting percentage for that game. And then I'll see if I can get this before we get out of here. But like this one's just going to be right up. We just know it's going to be right up there as well, because it only took him 35 minutes and 21 shots to do this. And 31 shots to do this one. Like, these stats just don't come around every once in a while. Like, this is the kind of efficiency that it just, again, it's unparalleled. I know I've used that word multiple times.
No, of course, and I will say too, the other thing from a purely Brooklyn Nets fan perspective, a Nets, I'll say, to include New Jersey in it as well. The other part about this is, look, from the franchise piece, you get beyond Darren Williams, okay, but Kyrie Irving will have the third best scoring performance back in 2020. Then you have Kevin Durant. You already have Kevin Durant in the top 10 another time, plus 2 more Kyrie performances within the top 12. All to say, like, from a franchise perspective, 20 years from now, when you look at Brooklyn Nets and their franchise records, you're going to have 2 of the greatest players ever to play the sport in your history books. And that's something that I think, for a franchise that has struggled through a lot, had a couple of flashy moments once upon a time with the Jason Kidds and Vince Carters and Richard Jeffersons and even Kerry Kittles of the world, you're going to now be cemented as a part of this. Now, when you look it up, it'll say Kyrie Irving, Brooklyn, 60-point performance, one of the all-time efficient games that we've seen to this point. Let's go ahead and maybe, who knows? We'll see where we go from here. But before we do, what I need to tell you is the thing that I maybe didn't need in this particular game, but I'm sure Kyrie had a handful of, and that's going to be Built Bars. I may need the protein boost tomorrow morning just to recover myself from the excitement and just, quite frankly, overwhelmed with joy is what happened here. You head over to built.com, as we've been telling you about for so long all this season, where you can check out all the delicious flavors that you have, not just covered in 100% real chocolate for the protein bars, but they also have introduced the first of its kind marshmallow puffs. It's a light, little fluffy, also covered in 100% real chocolate, protein infused marshmallow. We know that if you're over there and you're looking for a delicious puff flavor, try banana cream pie. That's right. Delicious flavors and combined with a really good protein bar. And that's because most of these Built Bars contain just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You compare that to those disgusting candy bars you find at the store. Over 240 calories? No. Let alone the 30. Grams of sugar. I think not, my friends. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If they can think of a flavor, they're going to put it out there, because it's all going to be delicious. You get over there, it's not only delicious, good for you, over on built.com. So I think we can safely say what is next for Brooklyn. But if I could keep this in the context of this game, just for a moment here, in case anyone was wondering, 60-point performance there for one Kyrie Irving probably will not be a footnote in the history books. That Kevin Durant, just oh so quietly, was 6 of 9 in 30 minutes and gave you a gentleman's 19 points. This to me was funny because it got mentioned by Michael Grady. Shout out to Grady, by the way, on the podcast. He may have coined the new nickname for Kyrie Irving. Easy money is Kevin Durant. Cash App, Kyrie Irving.
Real quick, along those lines, I did just calculate his true shooting percentage for this game.
Yes,
it was 89%.
So it's
so
not,
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's okay. I'm pretty sure I did this correctly. So I'm just because I hadn't seen it posted, but I just did the formula really fast. So it looks like it's 89%. Yeah, like it's funny when Kevin Durant just gets pushed off to the side as part of the game, but this is what happens when you have superstars on the team.
Oh, of course. And this is the funny thing of being like, hey, you know what? This is your game. I did 53 last time. Why don't you go ahead and have 60 for this?
And by the way, no one was more excited. Like, if you saw his reaction coming off the bench when Kyrie got pulled from that, when Kyrie hit 60, and like the excitement that Durant had, like no one in that stadium was more excited than maybe Kyrie, than maybe more. Like that was the way he reacted coming off the bench.
So I'll put a little bit of context to it in this regard as well, because I mentioned on the last episode, we're talking about Bruce Brown's comments in the post game, getting back into a comfortable space, came out in a bad headspace at the start of the year, different role, trying to get himself more comfortable, etc. Inside of this game, I understand the 60-point performance. You can look at any of the recent games for Brooklyn. They just seem like they're in a better rhythm together. People getting onto the same page. We know they have more passers now. Didn't even have Seth Curry in this one, but really just great fluid continuity that we've seen out on the court from them. And I'm not here to look back at what is no longer a part of the team, But I don't know if these type of performances happen with the same level of ease when you have James Harden as a component of this team, because it just felt like some flips got switched after that trade where everyone took kind of a sigh of relief, a little bit of a breath of fresh air. And even if it's for the role players, Kyrie's still going to get his 60 points, doesn't care who else is there with him. But the dynamics feel different. To your point, Kevin Durant was the first guy cheering on Kyrie Irving and taking all the pleasure in that performance tonight.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, look, I'll put it one way is if you the more superstars you have in your team, the fewer
Harder it
times
is.
you need to do it. Like you don't
Right.
need like you just don't need to do it as much because you just have lots of other guys. So there's a little chicken and egg stuff with that, I would say. That being said, what it does highlight is that you don't probably need him as much as you thought you did, right? Maybe like it doesn't. It's clear that in terms of like the way the offense runs, that they haven't seemed to miss a beat at all without
Yeah.
James Harden. Like as long as he's so, I think you take solace in that. I think we kind of knew that would be the case, but maybe not to this degree. You don't want to rely on your guys having to score 50 and 60 point games to make it out. But like that's really what these games weren't really about that anyway, right? Because these games, a lot of these were just pretty easy wins, all things said and done. So
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, they scraped out a win and they needed all 60 right from him. It was like that's not the case with these games. It's like he's dropping huge numbers, but they're winning the game easily. So I think like from a team perspective, as long as they're a full squad, like this is I mean, who wants to see this team right now? Like this team is an
Good
absolute
point.
offensive juggernaut with these guys playing. It's just a matter of if they can get them all on the court at the same time. That's really the only thing standing in the way. It's really only their only weakness at this point.
And it just to if we're going to talk about what this win meant, again, fourth win in a row for the Brooklyn Nets. We talk about the standings. We had said once upon a time, hey, what's going to happen with Toronto here? Turns out they keep winning games. So there
Yep.
is this actually interesting moment right now where they remain still 2.5 back from Toronto, 3.5 back from Cleveland in the 6th seed. They're pushing through these games. They're going to go into this 3-game home stretch here that's going to include Dallas and the Portland Trailblazers as well in there. Do you see this as the continuation of what we're going to get from them going forward? Understanding we still won't have Kyrie Irving in home games for Brooklyn at this point, but we saw that Kevin Durant 53-point performance. It looks like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, when available, they're ready to do whatever it takes. Have you changed? Not your opinion, but do you look at the matchups beating Philadelphia? Both of them are there. But does it not matter as much now who they go up against? I know it was just Orlando tonight, but when you take on a respectable team in Dallas, it still needs to be you go out and win that game because these guys are both locked in this way over the remainder of the season.
No, there's these. We're still in win every game mode. And I
No,
still
that's
think
what I
this is
mean.
good.
Yeah,
Oh
every
no,
game.
yeah,
That's what I mean. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, and I still think these next 3 games are going to be tough. Like, it's great they pulled out that Philly win. The other
Yeah,
3 games, like Charlotte, New York, and Orlando, like weren't that heavy of lifts, really, all things considered. And with Philly, you had Kyrie. I do think this Dallas game is going to be a tough one. Luka's a ton to handle. They're relatively healthy at this point, so you're going to get them at pretty much full strength, and they're kind of needing to win too. So like that's not a great piece for them. Then the next game they get, then they get Portland. That's playing with mostly a JV squad at this point. That should be a win, kind of almost as long as Durant plays. So
yep.
that one they basically have to win that one, even at not full strength. And then Utah, who's also in this, like kind of needs to win space too. Not as much sort of where they are in the standings because they're unless they're like really fighting for seeding, but they're like kind of hovering around the play-in too. So
Yeah.
this is going to be this 3-game stretch will be different than this previous 4-game stretch because I would say 2 of these 3 games are very, very difficult. So I'm not feeling as confident about it, but I do feel like one, if you have Kevin Durant, you should be in every game, and 2, the team does seem to be sort of coalescing around this idea of like sort of understanding what they're trying to do. So they can get
Yeah.
Curry back and this other stuff. I'm not as look. We were like on death's doorstep here a few weeks ago. It does not feel like that anymore. So I think from that perspective, it definitely has changed.
Yeah, in this 5-game stretch, the 3 home, as you mentioned, Dallas, Portland, Utah, and then on the road for the Grizzlies and Miami. I think all things being equal, those 2 road games, you want to package them together. You still want to go 3-2 over those 5 games. You do that, then you can beat up Charlotte, you can beat up Detroit, and get yourself a nice little what'll be at that point 5-2 over a 7-game stretch and 9-2 over an 11-game run, right? Like that's all you can do is try to stack up as many as possible over the remainder of the season. You're still going to run into some more difficult matchups down the stretch there, but listen, It's all I guess all you can do is ask for historic performances from your superstar players on a night in, night out basis, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, that's it. That's that easy. That's it. It's not,
It's
not
just
hard to make a
what
basketball
recipe.
team. It's not how. Yeah,
Oh my
just get a
God.
couple generational talents and just hope they play. That's kind of the whole recipe. It doesn't seem like
Yeah.
running a basketball team is all that hard if I just put it in that context. All right, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back after the game on Wednesday. Obviously, breaking all of that one down. Look, again, I just reiterate that just happy to have been able to see this one. Like, this is what
Yeah.
you tune into basketball games for. On a random Tuesday night in March, you get to watch Kyrie Irving drop 60 points and watch the other team cheer for him. Like, that is literally all you can ask for when it comes to basketball, and all we can ask of you is to go over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've seen those numbers continue to climb. Go and like and subscribe over to the Locked On Nets YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the show notes.
My friends, we don't want tradition. We want to live in the present, and the only history that is worth Tinker's dam is the history we make today. Henry Ford.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets, RIP. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.